The Beatles Anthology gave us treasures that we'd never heard before. But by the time we get to Anthology 4, something's different. Hello, and welcome to Apple Jams, your Beatles and solo Beatles hangout. I'm so glad to see you here, so glad you could come. I have one little baby request, and that is, if you could, please me by smashing a like on this video and subscribing if you haven't already. That would really help me if you can. Another video about Anthology 4, I promise. I do have more to talk about, but the biggest news of the moment is undoubtedly Anthology 4, the re-release of Anthology 1 to 3, and the Disney Plus re-release of the Anthology documentary from the 90s, complete with a brand new Episode 9, remixed audio and polished up visuals. I haven't watched the whole thing yet. I will bring my thoughts to the channel in time. If you've watched the re-released Anthology on Disney Plus, please tell me your thoughts in the comments section. I respond to each and every one, and I'd love to hear what you think. Now, I've been wanting to make a video about my highlights from Anthology 1 to 3, and in doing the research for that and listening to the tracks and having just recently listened to Anthology 4, in putting that video together, it only strengthened and solidified my thoughts that in comparison to the original set of 3, Anthology 4 simply doesn't stack up in at least one key area, and that is giving us songs that are genuinely unheard. Take a look down the track list of Anthology 4, and any Beatles fan worth their salt is going to recognise each and every single track on there. You've got the likes of I've Just Seen a Face, Hey Bulldog, Get Back, Octopus's Garden, The Fool on the Hill, Nowhere Man. I mean, these are all songs that, you know, if you're interested in Anthology 4, you've probably heard many times before. You know them inside out. Save for maybe You're So Square, Baby, I Don't Care, which, I mean, that's only a short jam that leads into Helter Skelter anyway. And maybe, I guess, Can You Take Me Back, which, again, if you've heard the White Album, you have heard it. But yeah, fair enough, you might not have recognised that when you look down the track list. Compare and contrast that with Anthology 1 to 3, and I'm thinking in particular Anthology 1, which, take Free as a Bird aside, 16 of the 34 tracks on this record are unheard songs, and it includes some real gems, like one of my personal favourites from Anthology 1, In Spite of All the Danger, which, such a great song. I'm so thrilled that they've been able to clean it up a little bit more on the re-released anthologies, to take away some of that, noise and hiss from the home recording session as it was done in the 60s. I would have loved to have heard a proper Beatles version of that song. My Bonnie, featuring Tony Sheridan, which they recorded in Hamburg, and How Do You Do It, the song that George Martin argued, quite unsuccessfully I might add, that they should release as a single. Moving on to Anthology 2, and you have even more unheard songs, such as If You've Got Trouble, That Means a Lot, and 12 Bar Original. I mean, okay, only 3 this time, although That Means a Lot is such a gem and so fantastic to hear. But additionally, what Anthology 2 gives us are genuinely alternative versions of familiar songs, the likes of which are much sparser on Anthology 4. The versions of Norwegian Wood and I'm Looking Through You featured here sound so different and offer such a fresh perspective on these classic songs. And then by comparison, much of Anthology 4's alternative versions seem to be versions with bits taken away rather than being different. So for example, Hey Bulldog without the bass or the vocals, but otherwise pretty much the same track. Money without George Martin's overdubbed piano, so basically just the Beatles in the studio. Personally, and this is just my opinion, but I just find these a little bit meh. It's like listening to an incomplete version of something that you know well, and for me, I don't really get much out of that. It's why I still haven't bought the Band on the Run 50th Anniversary Edition with the underdubbed mixes. I've listened to them on streaming, and yeah, okay, they're pretty much the same songs, just with bits missing. Okay, that's interesting to listen to once maybe, but otherwise I don't really get it. It's not an exciting alternative version or even an early Evolution style mix. To be fair though, I probably will get it at some point. Finally, we move on to Anthology 3, and that gives us some real gems in terms of unheard Beatles songs. George's compositions Not Guilty and All Things Must Pass, both of which would end up on solo releases, as I'm sure we're all aware, and Paul's Come and Get It, which would be recorded and released by Badfinger in 1969. I absolutely love the Anthology version of Come and Get It, which I actually heard before the Badfinger version. And I like both versions, but it's so cool to hear the original version that Paul ended up giving away. It also features Junk and Teddy Boy, which would end up being released on McCartney's first solo album, McCartney, and What's the New Mary Jane, which, in my opinion, is quite possibly the worst Beatles song ever, whether released or not. Nevertheless, adding in Step Inside Love / Lost Paranoias, the Jam medley, which includes Rip It Up, Shake, Rattle and Roll, Blue Suede Shoes, Mailman Bring Me No More Blues, and Ain't She Sweet. The tally of Anthology 3 unheard tracks comes in at 10. And take away the idea of, unheard tracks, let's put that on the shelf. Even like if you look at it from the point of view of historical significance, so like the Decca tapes, my goodness, what a wonderful thing for us to have access to. The track, not all of them, but some of the tracks from those original Decca auditions, the Ed Sullivan recordings, Shea Stadium, the rooftop of Savile Row. I'd argue that in terms of tracks that have like a documentary style appeal, like being linked with a significant milestone event, you're only really looking at All You Need Is Love, the rehearsal piece that was in the lead up to the Our World transmission, as being anywhere close to that in terms of kind of like significance. Obviously there's Don't Let Me Down, which is also from the rooftop, and maybe I guess you could say George Harrison hearing Octopus's Garden for the first time, but I mean, you've heard that once and you're not really going back to it, are you? And then finally, another thing that I think Anthology 1 and 3 have got going for them over Anthology 4, it's only 2 examples really that I've got for you, but early examples of what ended up being called evolution documentaries. So how, I don't know if you're familiar with the, on John Lennon's Super Deluxe editions, they have these evolution mixes and they go from like a very early take and then maybe pull in some, well, they might even go straight from a home demo, for example, and then pull in some early takes and splice them in together, and by the end of the track, you're basically ended up at the finished song. And they're really interesting insights into kind of like, the beginning to end formulation of a song, which is why they're called evolution mixes. And I wonder if they got the idea from when they were doing Anthology, because there's a couple of examples. Yes, it is from, I think it's Anthology 2, Yes, it is transitions from an early take to the master take. So it's only one edit, but what a wonderful kind of like sweeping transition that is from this, really early kind of like John just kind of like getting the rhythm and, getting a feel for the song, and to the actual finished take with the harmonies that come through. It's first time I heard it, I thought it was jaw-dropping. And then you've got Strawberry Fields Forever, which is 3 different tracks on Anthology 2, delivered in sequence, that give us that kind of like, it's not all on one track, but it gives you that kind of sense of going from early takes to something approaching the finished song. The last of those 3 is Take 7, which was later edited, of Strawberry Fields, which was later edited together with the slowed down Take 26 to create the final track. And Take 26 actually ends up being one of the tracks on Anthology 4, which is great, and we kind of like get the completion of that set. But it's a shame that it sits so separately from the others. So, okay, it would make sense for those all to sit together on Anthology 2. And that kind of neatly exemplifies my issue with Anthology 4. It feels so secondary to Anthology 1 to 3, as if all the best revelations and hidden gems have been used up in that initial set, and this is a collection of just a few more that didn't make the initial cut. Now, don't get me wrong, There are a lot of gems on Anthology 4. I mean, this is the Beatles, for goodness sake. You know, we want to hear as much as we possibly can. But my argument is it just doesn't carry the same impact as Anthology 1 to 3 due to the lack of those reveals or recorded historical events such as Ed Sullivan or the rooftop concerts. Well, sorry, forgive me, don't let me down, okay, is on there. But my point is that there's a lot fewer of those kind of like historical milestone moments. It really is just, here's some more outtakes. And I wonder if it has the same impact with more casual fans. You know, they're obviously releasing these to bring in younger generations, bring in the casual fans that haven't yet engaged with the Beatles. And when you compare that with the impact that the anthology had on the likes of me, you know, back in the 90s when I was just starting out on my road to Beatle geekdom, I suppose, does it have the same impact? I'd argue that if you start today with Anthology 4 and you think, yeah, that's great, I'll check out the other ones, things can only get better. So I think this video is long enough without me going into my specific highlights from Anthology 1 to 3, so I'll save that for another day. I've touched on many of them here. So all that's left to say really is, what do you think? Where do you think I'm talking nonsense? Where do you agree with me? Can Anthology 4 stand alongside 1 to 3 in terms of magic moments and fan service? Or do you feel, like I do, that as good as it is, it just falls short? Thank you for watching. Please do like the video and subscribe if you've enjoyed it. I've loads more that I plan to do. And until that time, I'll say ta-ra for now.